Well, hello. Thanks for clicking on. This is Delia. Okay, so what was coming up for today? I've had a number of conversations, and this seemed like a question that people are having right now. And that is, what is this energetic perspective thing or the spiritual perspective? So, to kind of give you some background, the spiritual perspective in my growing awareness, in my evolution over time, I started with the hierarchy of Roman Irish Catholic, which is very hierarchical in my very early youth. And then my family was very spiritually active and religiously active. They were one and the same at the time. And we prayed twice a day, and we talked about talking to God. And it wasn't as alienating and weird as it is now. Usually, people these days who are talking to God, it can be kind of a dubious thing, right? Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. But anyway, back then it was religious and hierarchical. And then it was spiritual, which had more space to it than just the hierarchy and more leeway with the definitions, but still hierarchical. There's, angels are better than humans and things like that in my child's understanding. And then as I evolved further, I got really clear, or it became really obvious to me that the thing that made sense to me is energy. So in the 90s or so, I was active in the 12-step world, and one of the things is praying only for knowledge of God's will and the power to carry it out. And I had a lot of power stuff because our world is crazy about power, and we have collectively, societally, confused domination and oppression with power. So the wording did not work for me. However, what did work for me was um, praying only for knowledge of God's will and the energy to carry it out. I had issues with praying only for knowledge of God's will, but I could go with the spirit of that prayer. And I could definitely follow the energy. So if there was energy flowing, that's like a yes. And if the energy was congested or stopped or heavy, then that's the no. And you can feel the energy flowing. At least I could. I'm very kinesthetic as a body. I understand by doing, I understand by reading and seeing, but doing is really the thing for me. And so I could really, with my whole body, I knew what that meant when it was the energy to carry something out. I couldn't mind fuck myself over whether or not I had energy for something. It was really clear, you know. So then there was more new age because it was the 90s and 80s and 90s and the human potential movement. And then two in the 2000s, I found an institute that taught the Egyptian ancient secrets and the secret, all the hubba hubba, all the mysticism, and it's very shrouded. It was very shrouded in um, mysticism and secret society. Well, not so much secret society, but uh, apprenticeship, and kind of the the facade or the cloak. Anyway, it was all the stuff that creeps me out now, and still, whenever it's employed, I understand it better now because if you're like, there's a if you're going to go learn how to uh, sit on the mountainside and become really higher up in the being a mystic or being a Buddhist or whatever, you go through levels and layers. And we've all seen those movies or stories about sitting on the side of the mountain and learning things and at a really slow pace. And I didn't really get the slow pace. I thought it was withholding kind of stuff. And now I understand so much better that the slowness of the pace is to give body personality a chance to kind of come around on its own, to desiring this information and embodying the information instead of simply like reading a sentence and regurgitating it in your head. A lot of people are very heady people like me. I was raised that, the age of enlightenment and thinking was going to set you free, and it set you free from the emotions, and which are a quagmire and sticky, all of these stories that we have about how we are and how we're built and how things work. So eventually it became more and more about energy for me and less about hierarchy, and even less and less about lineage. I grew up with, Irish Roman Catholic family, and lineage was a big damn deal between being from the Irish side and from the Southern side. And I know that there's a lot of really valuable work done with the ancestors, and I have been talking to dead people and entities without bodies all my life. But the separateness, when you make something sacred, often you're making it not relatable. You're making it extraordinary from daily life. And I've always been kind of peculiar that mysticism and is not about what's true. It's about what's right or wrong or what's good or bad. And so I don't know if this is making sense, but for me, it's come down to more and more, it's getting cleaner. It's gotten so much cleaner than it used to be, and less sticky and more flowy. And it isn't about hierarchy, and it's not about lineage. And it is totally about what is the energy saying now. And along with this transition has gone from being very past focused as part of the lineage thing, right, to being what is being present, what does occupying the present really look like and really mean. And also a growing love affair with the seeds that I'm planting today for the trees that will be here energetically. They don't even have to be physical. In 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, long after my body's gone. And that is so exciting, to be contributing to life. And not only, my personal life or my friends and family, but to life, this dynamic, magnetic, electromagnetic, fantastic, phantasmagorical thing that comes in all these shapes and sizes, mountains and trees and ants and bugs and flowers and breezes. What choices can I be making? What engagements can I be having today with that life force energy that's, sparking and dynamically growing and generative for the rest of the day and for tomorrow and for more and more and more, and for more people, but also all of life, because there's life at the bottom of the ocean, and there's anything with cells and molecules is life, whether it's a rock, so it moves really slow, or a hummingbird, which moves really fast, or a fly, which has a very short lifespan. So as things have gotten more refined over time, not refined, but kind of unloaded the baggage, unloaded the definitions, unloading the conclusions, and certainly unloading the hierarchy. And it becomes more and more about life and flow or no flow, and go or no go, and how that has made uh, living much more dynamic and exciting. Because the other thing that goes along with all of that is coming out of reruns, which we're collectively doing societally in the past few years, which is why things have been so bumpy. Or it's a way that things have been so bumpy, is because we're coming out of the reruns and the stories. They're all lies, but it's the stories of this is how things were. This is what's possible based on what's the past. And all of the things in our culture that have us regurgitating the past and projecting it all onto the future and saying that that's all it's possible. All we can have in the future is a variation of the past 10, 20, 30 years, which is ludicrous when you actually hear it said out loud. And yet that's the common, what do you call it? Hypnosis. And that's what's been breaking up. And that's one of the things that's made the past few years so bumpy. And so when you're interested in becoming more present and being able to meditate, and in the billions of forms of meditation there is no branding. There's no one, this is meditation and all the other ones are not. There's not, there's only the only thing that you need to be concerned with is what helps you connect to your life force energy and to your dynamic awareness and knowing. And if it's following this heritage of lineage of meditation, then do that lineage. If it's doing it this way, if it's doing it that way, whatever you're going to be engaged in, whatever you're going to actually do is the kind of meditation that's going to work for you. None of that is whatever worked for me. I was never going to sit there and not think. That was not going to happen. And I got sick of making myself wrong for it. And sitting there and just watching my thoughts did not work for me. But I have found ways of meditating that totally work for me. And it's a kind of, I call it energetic workouts, because it does require my participation. And as I participate, some of it is like guided meditation or guided imagery, but some of it is it's more visceral, tangible than just thinking movie images. And so I did find in the 80s and the 90s the different energetic processes that work for me, and those are what I teach. And so it's a small portion of the population that want to do energetic practices and become more, build their spiritual muscles, their energetic awareness muscles, and to become more practically magical in business and finance, in relationships, in every part of life. So that's the kind of dynamic and exciting energy work that I really love to teach and to participate in every day. I mean, it's just so amazing to have relationship with the birds and the bees and the plants and the trees in my apartment and in everything that I do, and to be able to be nourished by the molecular surroundings as well as to contribute to the molecular surroundings, knowing that there is no limit to what's possible for me and all other life forms and all other magical beings that have physical bodies, whether it's the physical body of a plant or a rock or a horse or a human. So part of why I wanted to come on here today was to let you know that you have within you, you have ways of communicating with life, um, the spiritual perspective, the energetic awareness perspective, and that are already natural to you, and that there are ways to attend to that, to pay attention to that, and to practice more and more. And there are people that teach things like that, and I'm one of those. But there is no limit, I think, is what I'm trying to say. There's no limit to what's possible for you. And the more you are in touch with that and remind yourself of that, the more you'll discover the truth of that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.